Hello, folks. I'm Jonny McFarlane, and we're here with another emergency briefing. I think it's about the 8th of this week. I've never been so busy in all my life covering for Joshua Barry. Poor Josh has picked the best week possible to go on holiday. I'm sure his hair's on fire right now. But here we are. Rangers have dispensed of the services of Philippe Clement, and we're here to discuss that, myself and Chris Jack. Chris, you've had a few moments covering Rangers where you've probably scratched your head and said, this is a slightly crazy club. What do you make of the last few days?
The last 72 hours or so, it's been quite something. As I said to a couple of the boys at Ibrox yesterday, I spent Wednesday morning working on a feature on Davies Dowell and Scott Wright at Birmingham and how well they are doing down in League One. Within a couple of hours, Rangers been bought by the San Francisco 49ers, and since then, Rangers have lost to St Mirren for the first time in about 30 years at Ibrox, and have now sacked the manager. So it has been quite the week, put it that way. But all in a day's work, all in a week's work, and we're still here, and we still keep coming back for more.
Do you know what, Chris? My first ever game at Ibrox was that game 30 odd years ago. I think it was 1991, the 1-0 defeat with Kevin McGowan scoring an absolute screamer from 30 yards. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember everything about the game very, very clearly. So to hear people talking about that, yeah, I was there the last time. And what a game it was. A dreadful performance by Rangers. St Mirren, I think, can be very, very proud of their performance, and a shrewd managerial tactical display from Stephen Robinson. But listen, let's just touch base and talk about what's happened tonight. Philippe Clement, we understand, has gone. It's not been confirmed by the club yet. I think every single media outlet in the land is gone with the news that Clement has been relieved of his duties, or is in the process of being relieved of his duties right now, and the club is working towards what will be undoubtedly an interim appointment. Is that correct?
Yes. It doesn't come as any form of shock to anyone who's been paying even the slightest bit of attention over not even just these last few weeks, over these last few months. I think it's been going this way for quite some time. I think back to a number of the games that myself and Josh have covered at Ibrox this season, and it's had this feeling, as we just touched on there. This is not the first time I've been in this situation regarding Rangers managers, and you do just get a feeling, you get a sense how things are going to go, and it's been heading this way for quite some time. Clement should not have survived after Queen's Park. That call should have been made that night or the following morning. It should never have got to the stage where he was allowed to put out a Rangers side that were so bad yesterday against St Mirren. That was a really, really poor performance, and again made this point to a couple of people over the course of today. I thought his demeanour post-match was different than it has been of late. There has been a bit more bullishness, a bit more defiance, if you like, over recent weeks, where he clearly still believes that he could turn it around and that he could get the fans back on side. I think the reaction to that result and performance yesterday and his press conference, his press conference, it said a lot. It became obvious that he should not be allowed to continue, and that has obviously unfolded over the course of the last few hours.
Yeah, in terms of what's next, Chris, there's obviously a managerial team at the club alongside Clement. You've got guys there that aren't necessarily part of what he would consider his long-term backroom, or the backroom that travels around with him to the various clubs. If you think about people like Brian Gilmore, if you think about people like Alex Ray, if you think about the guy who's just literally signed a 3.5-year contract, Issam Chirai, to come in as an assistant, you have to imagine that would have been a club appointment. And if not, then wow. But do you have anyone that you think would be the obvious idea for the remainder of the season? Is there anyone that's a Rangers legend that can step in and help? We've seen that done in the past with Stephen Davis, who I thought was effective in that role when he stepped in before Clement was appointed. For me, Chris, if I'm looking at those options, and these people been talking about Barry Ferguson, these people been talking about A few others, and the one that would jump out to me would be Neil McCann. I think he's an outstanding communicator. Anyone who's dealt with Neil knows that he's got an edge as well. He's a diminutive guy. He's not the tall, big strapping guy that Philippe Clement is, but you wouldn't want to get on the bad side of Neil McCann, let me tell you. He talks very intelligently about football. I thought his spell at Dundee was mostly very, very good, and he would have learned from that. And if we're talking about someone who can come in and take over the club and be a safe pair of hands alongside a coaching room, a coaching team, for me, I think Neil McCann would be a good shout. What's your feelings on that?
I think that's the road that you're looking at Rangers going down. It makes no sense for me at all to go and appoint the next permanent manager, even if the takeover wasn't in the offing and Rangers were not on the brink of such a huge change right across the club. Even if that wasn't the case, I still wouldn't have the next permanent manager coming in, because we've seen the cycle of what happens. So he will come in, he picks up a couple of results in games that mean absolutely nothing. You have some difficult days in the Old Firm games because the squad's not quite there and Celtic are better than you. You then go into the summer and it's talk of rebuild and ripping it up and starting again. And we've been through that cycle. Rangers have to change it. They have to do something different. You're looking at an interim to come in, just get these games out the road. They find some way of giving the fans something back for their time and their money and their efforts over the course of the season. And you then get to, as soon as that last game of the season, that's when your new man starts. First day after that, they always rip up the pitch at Ibrox after the last game. Your new man starts well the pitch is being ripped up, and that then gives you a couple of weeks to head into a pre-season, to head into the European games, and then hopefully by that stage you're head off and running. So I think the names that you mentioned there, Jonny, they are the obvious ones. Someone like Kevin Thompson, obviously just back at the club. Neil McCann, been around the club for a long time. I think they're the obvious ones that the fans will talk about. Even just seeing it on the comments on the show, that's the kind of candidate I think people will be looking for. They have to just find a way. I say get to the end of the season with as little damage as possible, and then you then start your new era with a new manager, another change in the squad, but perhaps most importantly, some new investment and some new drive and some new personnel further up the food chain.
Bluebear 8 has come in with a suggestion that I like, mainly, Chris, because I'd like to see Stevie Clifford versus Big Dunk in press conferences. Now, what do you think Mr. Clifford would say after the defeat to Big Dunk? Do you think he's going tete-a-tete? He wasn't put off by Big Phil, and Phil is not an unintimidating character in the flesh, let me tell you.
I don't think Stevie will be phased by anything. I think he'll go into I think he would go in for a 50-50 with anyone. Duncan Ferguson's an interesting shout. His managerial track record is not exactly glittering, it has to be said, but probably I think there are a couple of unwise choices in there. If you look at Forest Green, just seemed a bit silly all round. Inverness, we know the problems up there, so perhaps too harsh to judge him, and he will certainly be looking for another job. But I think that interim model, regardless of who it's going to be, that's the type of model Rangers have to go down, unless the American investors have got someone that they feel really, really strongly about and they want them in 6 weeks before the end of the season. But I think if you've got someone lined up, whether they're actually in the building or not, you don't need to be in the building to know what you're actually going to be walking into. You can watch enough, you can get enough information. So I don't really see the benefit of it. The next manager coming in, the next permanent manager coming in at this stage, there's very, very little to be gained from it. So still waiting to see what the club actually do and how they decide to play it. But I'm sure those conversations have been held over the last few hours as this is unfolded.
Yeah, it's twofold, isn't it? As you say, I mean, number one, you don't want to be appointing a manager once again at this stage of the season, once again going up against Celtic with a blunt knife, as it were, into that knife fight with them. And also, you've also got the situation where the change of ownership could happen and they want a new man. So just the whole thing doesn't make sense. In terms of the bookies, though, that hasn't stopped them. Chris, I'll just read you out the odds as it stands for the next permanent manager outright. So I suppose the thing about this and that bet it means they can appoint an interim and that the bet isn't changed in that regard. Steven Gerrard, the 4-1 favourite. Russell Martin, 5-1. I don't think Russell Martin has shown enough for me. He's a good footballing manager, plays a nice style, bit like Mark Warburton for me. But is that the kind of football that Rangers need to play? Maybe it is. Maybe it is. I'm not sure about that one. Kevin Muscat, 6-1. He's just signed a new contract, I believe, in China. It's only for another season, but again, you've got to ask how much that would cost to buy him out and whether he'd want to leave having committed himself. Gary O'Neill, good manager, 6-1. Had some up and down spells in his career. Staying with Steve Cooper, 8-1. Sean Dyche, 8-1. For me, Chris, I think that that one, I just don't know if Sean Dyche has got the ability to be a manager that is breaking down the low block. He knows British football, there's no doubt about it, but I just think that would be a big ask given what he's been in charge of in the past and where he's had success to where Rangers are now. I know that that'd be a name that a lot of fans would like, but I just don't think that's a good fit at all. Someone called Casper Hugelman, who I've not heard of, 14-1. Stephen Davis, 16-1, and then Gareth Southgate at 20-1. And I think earns his odds there, 20-1, given the fact he was on about £8 or £9 million a year when he was a England manager. And I think his next step will definitely be to the Premier League. Any of those names you want to add anything to? What about Sean Dyche, Chris?
I would say
Derek will be salivating at the prospect of having a truly Brexit Rangers manager.
You know that Derek is going to be on here in 13 hours time and is very much going to be banging the Neil Warnock until the end of the season. So Derek loves for these type of interim appointments where they can finally get Neil Warnock in the door. I think on Dyche and the style of football, it has been successful in the Championship. Now he has, and that's not exactly a league that's has been renowned for free flowing stuff. At times, it's a bit of a war of attrition to get out of the Championship. He does have that. He does have that on his CV. Is it too soon after leaving Everton? Is he still battle scarred by that? Who knows? The one that had been talked about, I spoke to a number of people about just a couple of months ago was Davy Moyes, and I know there was a number of people that were putting that theory towards the board and saying Moyes is the one that you should be going for. At least go and ask the question. At least go and put the call in. Rangers obviously decided not to. They decided to back Philippe Clement. Obviously, Patrick Stewart held that press briefing mid-January. Within a couple of weeks, Davy Moyes is off the table. He's gone. Safe to say he's showing what an excellent football manager he is of late, and the impact that he's made. So that one is obviously off the table now. Unfortunately, for me, there's not really anyone that's jumping out. I don't think there's an outstanding candidate. It's interesting to see what the profile is, because you look at what Rangers have done of late. They've gone for the club former club hero in Van Bronckhorst. They've gone for the big name in Steven Gerrard. They've gone for the up and coming English coach in Bielsa. They've gone for the foreign guy who has won. There was a lot to like about Clement's CV that suggested he should have been a success. It should have worked. Won a similar sized league, done very well, had relative success in Europe. He's mentioned his track record in developing younger players. There was a lot to like about it. There's a lot to suggest it should have worked. It's obviously not by any stretch of the imagination. So even before you start thinking of a name, what's the profile, what's the identity, what do you need to see from the next Rangers manager? And once you've established that, then you can start to whittle down the names. But there'll be scores of them do the rounds over the next few days and a few weeks, obviously. But ultimately, it will not be this Rangers board that decide and sign it off. It's going to be the next Rangers regime that have that call. And the interesting thing about that is, what budget do they want to put into a manager? You think what Rangers managers have been paid of late. You think what the Scottish football scene is able to attract in terms of a manager. Do they want to go and blow everybody out the water by spending several £1 million on a manager, or do they say, well, we'll shop in that same in that same managerial market. So that's one of the unknowns. We don't know. Now we can all sit and rhyme off names, but we don't know what the new ownership will see as their priority and as their wage bracket. If they decide to go and spend £5 million on a manager, that takes you into a different level.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, I suppose one of the things that I better talk about is the fact that Rangers Review now only allows people who are subscribed to comment in the comments. So if you're wondering why you can't leave a comment, it's because you need to be subscribed. It's absolutely free on the YouTube channel, but we want to create a proper community. We want to make sure that we can monitor it better. And if you're subscribed, we can do that, guys. So please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. And we can continue to grow the community, and we can continue to answer questions in there. It just helps us a lot if everyone is subscribed, or as many people as possible. The data tells us that about 50% of people watch are subscribed, and about 50% aren't. So we're going to ask you, just hit that subscribe button to be able to make a comment, and within a minute you are. So please do that. A few people coming into me with names. Pete Lawrence saying, Jonny, Derek McInnes gets overlooked all the time. Snobbery, in my opinion. He knows the SPFL well and will always put out a tough side. Now, I mean, this one is one that always gets brought up, mostly by media figures, it must be said, Chris, like yourself, trying to punt Derek as a potential Rangers manager. I'm only teasing you. I know you don't. But, I mean, my position on this would be Kilmarnock are 9th at the moment. They're on 31 points. They are joint 9th because Motherwell are also on 31 points. They're only 4 points above the relegation playoff place. I think Derek McInnes has been a right good manager in Scottish football. But this is not a great time for him. It's not a great moment for him. And to me, I don't see it. I don't think it's snobbery. I think he would need to win more than he's won to be considered for the Rangers job in 2025. He won that League Cup with Aberdeen, and at that point, that Aberdeen side that he built, it was absolutely terrific. But I don't think he's got to those same heights with Kilmarnock. I don't know where you are on that.
I think it probably references back to what I just spoke about in terms of the budget and in terms of the Americans. Do they coming in with whatever they're going to put into a transfer kitty? Do they see a Scottish manager and a very, very good Premiership manager? You can't take that away from Derek. He's been really successful up here. Knows the league, knows the game. Obviously, has been very, very successful. And for me, he has a very good manager. Is he the next Rangers manager? I would doubt it. I don't see it. I don't think it's the right fit. If the takeover had not been in the offing, you could maybe see Rangers thinking, well, we just need to. I think Derek would be a safer option. It would be a safe pair of hands, if you like. Not the most sexy name. Not one that's going to put bums on seats potentially. Not the one that's going to get people going out to buy season tickets. But if he was to put a solid and successful team on the park, the fans, as we know, will go with him. I think he could make Rangers better. Does he turn them into champions? That's a question I don't think we'll ever get the answer to. And I would be surprised if new American ownership would see someone of Derek's profile as the figurehead for their project. Would they see Derek as the type of guy that would go and lead that project? I think they'll go someone bigger name, as we've just touched on, probably with a bigger wage package as well. So
it's all about timing in football, though, isn't it? I mean, fundamentally, if Derek McInnes was third right now, then he would have a really, really credible shot of getting the Rangers job, because people would be saying, well, not only did he do that job at Aberdeen, which was terrific, he's done it at Kilmarnock too. And so he's just not quite had the momentum at the right time for me, Chris. And you can't get away from the fact that he's sitting in that position on the table. Now, I know it's extraordinarily close, actually, there. I'm saying that they're in 9th position, but actually they're 4 points off 5th. They're 7 points off 4th. So 8 points off 3rd. So, I mean, it could still happen, at 10 points off 3rd. Sorry, that's my maths. But it's just I don't feel like he's got any momentum at this right time. Now, listen, this is a great point, and we should have made this before, so this is my fault, but Bluebells are blue saying, wonder if we will appoint a football director first. Of course, that's going to be the case. Patrick Stewart has come out and said there's going to be this overarching sporting director who's going to work above Niels Koppen. They're going to appoint that. That's not a role they're going to say, look, we've got this manager already hired. We hope you get on with him. It's got to be a guy who's appointing his own manager, surely.
Mm-hmm. And I think as we touched on when we spoke about sporting directors on the show the other day, that has to be the right person. We spoke on that show about Rangers having right people in the dugout, in that director of football role, in the boardroom, and every role of the club. There's so much room for improvement right across every area of Rangers. And if you have the right people in those roles, that can then take Rangers forward. So the importance of that sporting director role and appointment cannot be overlooked. Rangers, they've had different kind of models, they've had different titles. Obviously, under Michael Beale decided to do away with it and go down a different road. I think all of us, you, me, Josh, and Derek, we're all kind of the opinion that is the best way to go. That is the model that should work, as long as it's the right person, and importantly, they're there for the long time. The whole point of the sporting director is that they can do this long-term planning. There is this overarching, overseeing role. You shouldn't be changing sporting directors like other clubs change their managers. That defeats the entire purpose of it. So that will be the first appointment. You would imagine that will be done sooner rather than later, given the fact that Patrick Stewart has now been quoted on it. It would seem silly to do a Rangers TV interview and say this is a recommendation, but not be at least some way down the line. You can't announce that and then come off camera and think, right, I better go and start looking for one. They have to be some way down the line in terms of that. You would hope. So that appointment will be made first, and whoever gets that job then obviously has a big game to play in finding the next Rangers manager.
Yeah, indeed. We've got a comment here from Craig Easton. Marcelo Bielsa links to 49ers through Leeds. I think he left the year that the 49ers took over full control, Derek. Chris, I keep doing that. I'm going mad. It's too late at night.
That's 2 strikes and you're out. Nobody gets a fucking crack at that.
I think it's oncoming dementia. It's absolutely terrible, but I do apologise. So, listen, Chris, there is that link there, but Bielsa is a guy who has been on huge salaries in his career. He's a Uruguay national team manager. I can't imagine he's doing that for buttons, given the kind of money that he was making at Leeds. I mean, that's the kind of appointment that would have everyone brimming with excitement. It would be extraordinary. There's a lot of people talking about Jose Mourinho in the comments as well, and I think it's right that people have the opportunity to dream. Rangers have been through a period of dour football and a sense of malaise around the club. So this news of the investment has got people dreaming, but I think we also have to put into context of where Rangers are in the grand scheme of world football at the moment, and the level of finances it takes to secure a Mourinho or a Bielsa is a kind of £8 to £12 million a year salary. And there's just no one in Scotland that could ever afford that, unless you were to really, really massively push the boat out. And I have to be honest, Chris, I think anyone that was to do that in Scotland, it would actually be financial vandalism to that level. That's not even ambition. It would be insanity, because you just can't bring in the level of revenue that could justify ever getting someone at that level. And I'm sorry to be like the doom merchant with that, but I couldn't almost, and the excitement would be palpable, but at the same time, it really, really wouldn't make sense for a club that has 100 million turnover, if it's doing really well, to take on someone that would swallow up 10% of that, even if they're an elite manager.
It would be worth it just to see Josh giddy with excitement. Imagine some of the tactical pieces that Josh would do on Bielsa ball. It would be all of a young man's Christmases rolled into one. So for that reason alone, I'm all aboard the Bielsa ball hype train. I think I think, as you touched on there, it's interesting to see the number of different names that are doing the rounds. You've just gone from Derek McInnes to Jose Mourinho in the space of a couple of comments on the screen that we can see here. I think that shows it shows that there's no outstanding candidate. There's nothing that you can say it should definitely be him. Let's just go and get him. And it shows the kind of wide scope of, we just don't know Rangers are. Now, as you touched on the financial there, we don't know what level they're going to do. We don't know if they're going to go down solid domestic. Are they going to go back down the English road? Do you go foreign again? Because they've been burned by all of those things. They've had success and had failures with so many different types. And I know Steven Gerrard's name will do the rounds once again as well. So there's going to be so many names coming up over these next days, weeks, months, however long it takes. It's certainly going to be good for business, and certainly gives us something to talk about. But we're going to spend so many hours just going through the good points and bad points of so many of these managers and potential appointments.
I just took a WhatsApp from Mr. Clark, who's always enjoying the bants and loves the funnies. So he's pointed me in the direction of a comment from @Podcast Davey, who says, "It's all right, Chris. Another name for a Jonny is a condom." So there you go. Give me pelters. And Blair Lackey also saying, "You're going to call Chris Jonny next?" No, I'm not that bad. But, I might call him Derek once again. I'm so used to going Derek. I'm just falling into that habit, unfortunately. I need to work on it. This taking over from Josh Lark isn't as easy as it looks. That's what I'm going to say. Chris, in terms of the next few days, how does this kind of tend to unfold? You've been through it so many times. What do you expect the lay of the land is going to be by Wednesday? Do you think the club will be looking to make an appointment within the announcement of Clement's departure? Or do you think it'll be Philippe Clement's gone, we'll update the support shortly? How have they done it in the past in your experience, and how do you think they'll go about it now?
It's very difficult to know how they'll do it now, because there's so much. That also has been a lot of change around about the boardroom, and I don't think you could really take any pointers from what has gone before. We are now a couple of hours on from when we had the story on the website. This has been doing the rounds for quite some time, and there is still nothing official from the football club. So I think that's the first thing. That's the first great point that has to be ticked off. We have to see Philippe Clement officially off the premises first and foremost. They have to make decisions on the backroom staff. I think, as you mentioned earlier on, like I said, Brian Gilmer, Colin Stewart have been at a club for a long time. You'd imagine they would stay on as some form of transition into an interim period, but we don't know yet. That's not been confirmed. So it's really still just need to wait and see what tonight brings. You would assume the club would do something tonight, and they would say something tonight. It would be really, really bizarre if they allowed this to get to tomorrow morning and then decide to sack the manager, or then made the announcement of that being done when it's been doing the rounds for so long. Everybody knows, everybody's been talking about it. People are already, as we've just done for the last 20 minutes, everyone's already talking about the next one. So it would be really, really strange if the club didn't actually confirm that tonight. But as you know, I know, and other guys in this game know, it can be a difficult club to predict and to deal with at times. So time will tell how it unfolds. But heading into the next couple of days, as you mentioned, a press conference on Tuesday, so they better have someone there for that. I don't want to be heading up talking how he setting everything up, sitting down in that media room, and no one comes in to speak to us. So again, it comes down to timing. They could have done this after Queen's Park. You then had a run, and you had a whole week at it. Decided to do it after this one. I say someone has to be there to take the team on Monday morning. Someone has to do that press conference Tuesday, and someone better get themselves down to Rugby Park on Wednesday night, or Josh will be doing it while I'm in the press box doing the 5 things.
I'm very excited because I've got an ITK post here in the know, and it's from Bolt Ya Bobag. I mean, he's got to be in the know. Clement van der Hayden and Ray away tonight. Issam Chirai taking over as interim manager, with Kevin Thompson coming into the first team, Brian Gilmore and Colin Stewart. I can see it happening. I can see it. It's not unforeseeable. It could happen.
Don't knock down that just on the strength of the name. One of the great trip stories, or one of the more bizarre press trip nights, we were in Fingarola for Gerrard's first pre-season, and news of Graham Dorran's been sent home from the trip because he was injured. It was broken by a Twitter account called Baldy Roaster. So we were out having some local drinks and some local food late on at night, and saw this on Twitter, and that was the man that broke the news of Graham Dorran's been sent home injured. So don't knock it down just because of the username. On the actual point, and far more seriously, obviously, that it wouldn't completely surprise the fact that they brought in Sharai on that contract did seem a bit strange at the time. Why would you commit that length of contract? Also, Clement still had that time on his contract, so I dare say if they'd given his new assistant 2 years, it might have looked a bit odd, but they must have known signing that contract that this situation could unfold and could snowball and could escalate quite quickly. So as I say, we're still waiting to get full details of who's staying, who's going, and what's going to unfold. But time is of the essence because of that Kelly game, and then you're back at Ibrox next weekend, and then after that you're into the European game that should have been Clement's crack at it. So we're very much, I was going to say uncharted territory there, but for Rangers it's not actually. We're just back to when Steve Davis came in.
Yeah, I mean, there's three options with Chirai, isn't there? Number one, that they've made a catastrophic error and they backed Clement so much that they gave this guy a 3.5-year deal. But I just don't buy that. Option number two, which I think is much more likely, is that there's a break clause in his contract, which is, at the end of each season, and they might have to pay him off a little bit, but you're only talking 3.5 months now, aren't you? And I suppose option three, which is the other one, which is that he's a club appointment and that they feel like he's someone they want in the backroom staff. They feel it can offer something long-term in the way that Colin Stewart has across managerial reigns. And that could be what the situation is. I suppose time will tell on that one. We're going to find out. But it's not like we know an awful lot about the guy. He's not done much. We don't know anything about him. We don't know what he's bringing to the table. So I think that's one of these little mysteries that's going to be wrapped up a bit more in the coming days, because we'll find out based on how the club move. So a few people saying that they don't think Barry Ferguson would be up to it. They don't like that one. I have to say, Chris, without being disparaging to Barry, when I was a kid growing up, was, I think the best player in Scottish football, probably the single most talented Rangers youngster I've ever seen, and a truly elite player in the Advocat era before all his injuries started to rack up. I mean, he could control a midfield like almost no other player I've seen in the Royal Blue. But I think it's fair to say that he's not had a great managerial career. He was at Clyde. He did okay. He went to Alloa. I don't think that went well at all. You got to ask yourself whether or not Barry has the any kind of chops from a CV that you would say would make him a good interim. I tell you what, I mean, he loves the club. He knows about the standards, and I don't think he would accept any nonsense. But I think there's other candidates better placed. How would you assess it?
Like you touched on there, his managerial record is not exactly a sterling one, but it really depends what Rangers are looking for over these next 2-3 months that's left of this rather disappointing and downbeat campaign, and you're really just looking for someone to try and raise the morale round about the place, to try and give the fans something to look forward to going to the games. I said back at Ibrox next week, and I had a conversation heading off the gantry last night. After that game, I talked to somebody saying, what could the crowds, if Clement was to stay, what could the crowds actually get to here at Ibrox over these next few weeks? Where's the motivation for people to come from down south, to come from Belfast and Northern Ireland, and to come from every corner of Scotland? Where's the motivation for it? Because you're not going to get treated to anything. I think the fact that Clement is now away, it might give people a wee bit of something of a shot in the arm. It gives them something to actually get not excited about, but it gives them more of a reason to go. And I think if you see someone like Barry or like Kevin Thompson or like Neil McCann in the dugout, and you know at least they're going to be able to rally the troops a wee bit, if you like, just give you something in this side. Because for all the for all the lack of quality that was there on Saturday against St Mirren, a real lack of like effort and desire, all the things that should be non-negotiables for a Rangers side. So I think the club will be looking for someone almost like when Stuart McCall came in 2015. We're rapidly approaching that anniversary of regime change, honestly, and Stuart came in at that time, inherited a really, really poor situation with a squad that was fractured, so low on confidence, a club obviously in such a huge state of disarray, and he came in and was just able to give people a lift, give people something to actually buy into. Ultimately, it didn't work in terms of promotion, but I think you're looking for someone like that to come in and just give the place a lift, because there's no doubt that confidence levels and enthusiasm levels have definitely been impacted and taken a real hit.
I think part of it, mate, is that they have to think about the young players that are there, and they have to think about their trajectory. So it has to be someone that has the coaching chops to continue developing them and bringing them on and giving them confidence and getting the best out of them. Young players, young talented players, you don't want them losing 3 or 4 months of their career because the season's just all petered out. And that's why I wouldn't go for someone that was going to be a kind of an arse kicker, someone who's going to come in and, tell these guys what's what. I think you also need someone, and listen, if someone's got that and is also good on the coaching field, then fantastic. But I think primarily what you need is someone who's a really good coach, someone who'll go in that training field and get the best out of the young guys and improve them. And they might not be the perfect coach, they might not be the perfect manager, but as long as that there's a development there, that when the next guy takes over, the real guy takes over, then you don't feel like Hamza Egamani's kind of frozen in time from the player when Clement left. And listen, Egaman's had a really bad little spell, hasn't he? He's just not looked the player that he did back in December, for example. But I think that's going to be at the core of it, and maybe they've already got the guys there within the team with a little sprinkling of something else to do that. And someone like Brian Gilmore, for example, has got a lot of experience with the youth teams, and his period in the academy should set him up to help do that. But I think they also need someone with a little bit of stardust in there alongside those guys to just have that kind of gravitas to sort of step back and say, you're going to do it for me today, lads, because it's such a hard role to come in for 3 months, because all the players know that you're gone. So they don't have to do it. They have to want to do it for you. And that was the great thing about Stephen Davis. I don't think he was particularly successful in that period, but you knew that the players would give their all for Stephen Davis because they all respected him. So I think there has to be a level of that. And I think there has to be an acknowledgement with whoever comes in that it's going to have to be more carrot than stick. It's going to have to be about creating a good atmosphere and making everyone happy for 3 months, because otherwise this season could just become a disaster.
I think that there is every danger that it gets worse before it gets better. As you say, no matter who comes in, no matter how good they are on the training ground, no matter how good an influence they are, as you say, the players know, well, in 2-3 months' time, you're not going to be here. You're not the gaffer. You're not the one that's going to be paying my wages or deciding how many games of football I play. So that does make it difficult. You would hope that the players have enough about them, professionally and personally, not to get into that rhythm and to fall into that trap. But I think after the Queen's Park game, there's a lot of soul searching. We certainly did that on the show, and a lot of people saying, what is there left to play for here? What do we want to see from these next couple of months? And you've touched on one of the big ones there. Can you bring these young players on so they're not going into an environment that's hugely pressured in terms of you need to win games to win the title, but they're now in an environment where fans are in a real kind of state of flux. The fans are just really down. But I think news of Clement's sacking and news of the investment and the takeover, that will give fans a bit. I think it'll buy the fans a bit more breathing space, buy them a bit more patience. Ibrox on Saturday afternoon was not a happy place to be. It was not a good place to be. the fans should, when they go to Kelly, when they go to Ibrox next week, certainly for European games, I think they will understand the difficult situation that the next interim manager is going to be in. Also understand the situation for the players, and what do you want to see from the players? You want to see a reaction. You want to see who really wants to be here next season, who really wants to be part of this Rangers squad next season. And for the younger players, you want to see them with an opportunity to go and express themselves, and with an opportunity to go and prove that they can be part of the squad heading on next season.
Okay, well, listen, Chris, if we've gone too soon and our sources are wrong and we've got it completely spectacularly wrong, then at least we can say that the BBC have gone down in the sinking ship with us, because 14 minutes ago, they've even come to the conclusion that Philippe Clement has left his job. I'm led to believe from a message I've just received that a statement will be incoming in a very, very short while. So I don't know about you, but shall we just stay on for the next 10 or 15 minutes or so that we've got the statement?
As long as the statement comes at the same thing. So I've just got the same text message, and the person who sent it is in for a hell of a time in the morning. If you're still sitting here at 10 o'clock at night waiting for a statement,
probably he's just watching and wants to continue the jocular banter that we're enjoying, and to see if I call you Derek one more time. That's always a possibility. A lot of people talking about Steven Gerrard. Listen, this is one that I just want to say something on. Peter Derek. I've just done it again. I've just called you Derek again. Peter Derek, should I say? Gerrard would be someone I would like to see come back with money to spend. So in terms of Stevie G, this is a guy who I don't think would come back in an interim capacity. Now, if the San Francisco Enterprise Group want to have a big name in, they want to have all singing, all dancing superstar to launch the project, then I can see Steven Gerrard coming back in the summer if they want to back him and they're going to give him money, and I could absolutely see that. But if we're talking about someone interim, I just, Chris, I can't see it. I can't see it at all.
I don't see what's in it from Steven's perspective. Now, why would you come back unless you come in and you've got cast iron guarantees that you're going to be the next manager and you'll be there first day of pre-season next year? Why would you come in? Why would you take it? I know Steven will feel, and I believe Steven will feel he's got unfinished business here, and we spoke a lot about that around about the time that he left, and at various points since. I think he will try and get back into the game. He will try and get back into management. Is the interim role at Rangers that the right one for him? I don't think so. I'd be surprised if he sees that as his avenue and his way back in. But in terms of, if you think from the Enterprise's perspective, if you're looking for a big name to come in and kickstart your new regime, they don't really come much bigger than Steven Gerrard. So from that perspective, you can understand it. But I think from Steven's perspective, it would be a risk. I don't really see what the attraction would be if he's only guaranteed to get this 3 months in a league where it's gone. One European tie, he might even be the next interim might even be appointed by the time Rangers get to that European tie, and also not even a Scottish Cup to say, well, at least there's something there that I can go and win. There is nothing to play for this season, and whoever gets that interim role, it's a thankless task in many ways, because you are just the gatekeeper. You're just the guy that's there to do the training sessions, do the press conferences, try and win as many games as possible, and you're then handing it over to whoever the next permanent manager will be.
We've done a lot on the names that people are throwing at us, and I think we've covered all the main ones there. I don't think there's anyone we've left out. I want to just touch on Philippe Clement and his time in charge. How do you think history will reflect on his spell, Chris? I look at it and you think to yourself, he was very, very, very good for a period when he first arrived, up until about maybe March, April time. Nobody thought Rangers had a hope in hell of winning the title. Absolutely not. And he got Rangers to a situation where they should have won the title. He won a League Cup. The wheels came off and everyone thought, okay, it's these players, people like Connor Goldson and others who have just been there too long. There needs to be a change of the guard. People like John Lundstrom left, like Borna Barisic. Everyone said that's the right time. And I think it was proven to be right on that one. But this season you were expecting much more. That said, I think the narrative from Clement will be this. He will say, I was told I was going to get a war chest, to use the old-fashioned parlance. I was told I would be able to rebuild. I was given a longer contract. I was told I would get time. And I've had none of these things. The results were bad. I admit it. Things didn't go perfectly. I admit it. But the strategy changed. The wage budget was slashed. The club was in crisis. There was no chairman. There was no CEO. And I was running about with my head on fire. And I think that there'll be future clubs when Clement gets his next job, and he will get a next job. You know, we'll be getting asked to go on the podcasts of other people to talk about his spell. And that will be the narrative that you take on if you're coming at it from a positive point of view from Clement. To me, the big problem with that story is the football itself. And the truth of the matter is that domestically, there's more than enough evidence to show us what a Philippe Clement team looks like, what a Philippe Clement philosophy looks like. And the answer to that is staid, boring, unimaginative, not particularly creative, and very, very inflexible. Absolutely stuck to the 4-3-3. Absolutely stuck to the idea of playing in a certain way. And okay, sometimes he moved towards to having Hamza Agaman off the left and moving slightly in closer to Dessers, and that worked for a little while, but he never really truly looked that comfortable with that, did he, Chris? And that's the key to me. And I just think he just was the wrong manager for Rangers. He just isn't a guy who I think is suited in terms of his football to this league. I think he's a good guy. I liked dealing with him. I think he's a smart guy, a cosmopolitan guy. I think he's a guy you'd like to go and have a glass of wine or a pint with. But in terms of as a football manager for Rangers, I just don't think it was a good fit. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him go and do pretty well somewhere else. But that, to me, is the story of Philippe Clement's reign. The football was what killed it.
You look back at sliding doors moments, at defining moments, and defeat to Motherwell last year was termed, looked like a blip, as a bad day at the office, turned into the beginning of the end for Philippe Clement, because he then did not go on and win a title that was there for Rangers to potentially win. Yes, he inherited a really poor situation in terms of the league, but he got himself into a position where he could have won a really, really unlikely title, and that could have been a real springboard for Rangers. But he wasn't able to do it, and he then compound that by not winning the Scottish Cup. That's then compounded by failing in the Champions League, compounded further by losing the first Old Firm games, certainly in that manner. And since then, it's just been one after one after one after so many failures. Ultimately, I think he will go down. I don't think he'll be damaged by Rangers. I think, as you could outline there, I think he will get another job, be able to talk himself out of it, talk himself away from this last 20 months or so. I don't think he'll be unduly damaged by it. But I don't think the Rangers fans will hold him in high regard at all. I think we've seen it even on the shows. As I mentioned, some of the Ibrox games that me and Josh have done were mentioned that over the course of the season. Still been a lot of people defending him, saying, well, he's not had this. We had the Ibrox situation, had no chairman, no chief exec. Ultimately, did they come into the conversation to an extent? But if you're looking for an excuse, that's a good one to use. bare facts speak for themselves. Look at Rangers' record this season. Look at where they are in terms of Celtic. No silverware once again. The football has not been good. The results have not been good. The signings, not exactly a rip-roaring success either. And I think over the last couple of months in particular, there's just been not quite excuse after excuse, but he's tried to talk his way out of situations, and for me, only made it worse. It's not worked. It's not looked like working for a long time. It should have ended before now. And so even the League Cup win last year feels like such a long time ago now, and fans they're taking nothing from that. Yes, it was good at the time. Rangers manager, you're there to win leagues, and he didn't win the league that it looked like he could do. And this season, never, ever, ever looked getting anywhere near winning the league. I say that the record speaks for itself. And ultimately, when we're sitting here in 5 years, 10 years, whatever, doing the show and still writing about Rangers and talking about Rangers, he will be the guy that was the manager the day that Rangers lost to Queen's Park in the Scottish Cup. And there's no recovering from that. In the eyes of the Rangers fans, you were that manager. That was your team. That was your fault.
Yeah, that's his epitaph. Yeah, 100%. Daniel Dawson saying, Jonny just makes things up as he goes along. Don't think Clement ever played a 4-3-3. I know he plays a 4-2-3-1, but these are just 4-3-3 variants in a lot of ways. I was kind of just meaning the front three. I mean, part of the problem to me, Chris, is I think sometimes in Scottish football, you just need to go for the jugular and show a distinct lack of respect for your opponent. Just, really go after someone that's sitting in. And listen, that's not just Scottish football. I think if you've got better players on higher wages who are international players, I think sometimes when you're at home, you've just got to throw aside caution and go for it. I look at that squad, for example, and I just think there's other solutions that Clement hasn't looked at. For example, I think 3 at the back for Rangers, either a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-1-2, however you want to put the constituent parts together. I think that there's potential options there to change things up and to offer some surprises and to catch people unaware and to offer up something different to the fans. And to me, Clement just didn't show any sign of changing the story. He would talk about, this is the story. And I think the point of that was he wanted consistency, and he felt that if he changed it, then it would undermine him as a boss. It would undermine his philosophy, because he was always very insistent of, this story will bring us to where we want to go. This story, if we follow it, I believe in it. So he couldn't change it. But I always think the managers need to have a level of pragmatism within them. And, and people will talk about Pep Guardiola, and he has a rigid idea, and Mikel Arteta, who's obviously Pep's protege, has a rigid idea. For me, I've always liked managers that could change things up, that could adapt to the circumstances, Chris. And I don't know if that's, maybe it's just because in Scotland we've not had that kind of philosophy manager be a real success, with the exception of maybe Ange Postecoglou. But I like the idea of having some level of pragmatism as a Rangers manager, because I believe that if you look at the challenges that you face as Rangers manager here, Ross County at home is very different to Nice away. Your Celtic at Parkhead is so different to St Mirren at home, or it should be. You get the idea. The very, very difficult games that Rangers face are just so different, and I think you need to be able to adapt to meet the challenges.
Ultimately, he showed that he didn't have the answers domestically. Now, even last week when Patrick Stewart spoke to Rangers TV, the Europa League run was referenced, as was also this tie come against Fenerbahce, as we now know after the draw. And yes, being successful in Europe is great, but Giovanni proved that no matter how successful you are, no matter how close you come to immortality at Ibrox, if you're not going to win the Premiership, if you're not going to win domestic silverware, it doesn't get you anywhere. You have to be successful domestically. And Clement's style and his approach to domestic football. At Ibrox, it was boring. There's a number of games at Ibrox this season that have been nowhere near the acceptable standard, and they've managed to get through them. Away from home, Rangers have just been absolutely dreadful. There's no way around about that. Domestically, it's been absolutely terrible away from home, and there's nothing that he can say to get himself away from that and get around that. So ultimately, he has failed due to his own failings. It's his own fault that he's no longer Rangers manager, because ultimately it's just not been good enough. And when you're in that situation, you have to find a way to win. Never look like winning enough games of football. You don't win enough games of football, you don't stay very long as Rangers manager. And that's without even mentioning the Old Firm record, which went on for far too long. Yes, he finally managed to win one, but again, it was something that fans were always going to throw at him. That was always going to be brought up. And as I said, his record overall, style of play overall, too many things just have not worked. And ultimately, that's why we find ourselves in the position where we
Chris,
are now.
I'm going to break into you there. That's Rangers just announced the following. Rangers Football Club can confirm that tonight it has parted company with men's first-team manager Philippe Clement. The club would like to put on record their sincere thanks to Philippe for his hard work and dedication during his spell in charge. A further update from the club will follow in due course. So, short statement, and very, very little there to go with. There's not even an accompanying web article to go with it, Chris. It's just simply that they've parted company with him tonight and that they would like to put on record their thanks for his hard work and dedication during his spell in charge. So a further update will follow in due course. Presumably that means that they've been deep in talks with whoever they want to bring in, or on top of negotiating some sort of settlement with Mr. Clement, because that'll be something the lawyers will be taking care of for the time being. But what do you make of
that? Those 60 words or so, not quite worth hanging on for, were they? I think the fans will. I think the fans will be hoping for a wee bit more than that. It's finally happened. We obviously kind of teased it a wee bit, I feel like 15-20 minutes ago, by saying that it was going to happen. So at least it's finally there. It would have been nonsensical in so many ways if the club had said nothing tonight and it had been allowed to get rumble into tomorrow. So at least we've got that confirmation of the story that obviously we had on the site 3-4 hours ago, whatever it is now. So that has at least been confirmed, but doesn't really answer a lot of the questions that we've been talking about over the last 57 minutes or so. No, what's next? There's also no mention of the backroom staff in that statement. Certainly no mention of an interim or what's next. So that will be the job for tomorrow morning as we all get ready for another day of hitting the phones and see where we end up.
Yes, well, I can hopefully avoid calling you Derek one last time before the end of the show. Just a reminder to everyone that it is indeed there has indeed been a wee change to the way we operate in terms of making comments. Loads and loads of you coming on. You need to be a subscriber now on YouTube to make a comment. It's absolutely free. You click that subscribe button and then you leave a comment within a minute. But it's just because it helps us manage so much better your comments. It allows us to kind of ban people as well if they are trolling or getting up to no good, and helps us just keep on top of things. 50% of people that watch the show do subscribe, and that's fantastic, and 50% don't. So that's what we're trying to do, get more people subscribed. As I say, it's absolutely free. Bluebells are blue. It's just gifted 10 Rangers Review YouTube memberships. Anyone who wants them, click on. You will get access to all of that extra content that we do every week here on YouTube. So thanks very much for that. Bluebells are blue. And guys, that's absolutely free. So there you are. That's absolutely brilliant of you. And just help yourself to those. First come, first serve that. But a fantastic gesture by Bluebells are blue. Thank you very much for that. And over on the website, of course, we have a deal at the moment as well. We can download our app, and if you go to the website, you can join up, rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. It's £1 for 6 months. And Chris, I've got a feeling there's going to be a lot of Chris Jack exclusive content coming. So I think that's one that people might want to consider. That's for all our written content. Help support us do these videos as well. So that would be phenomenal if you could do that, but leave it completely up to you guys. You know what to do. I want to thank you all for coming. Chris, I want to thank you for putting up with my nonsense. Not been my best performance tonight, but I think we've just about scraped through. Derek, thankfully, is back tomorrow to add some professionalism, a sheen of someone who knows what they're doing here on the mic, and that will be much better for everyone. So listen, I've enjoyed it. I have to say, it's been crazy. It's been a week that I don't think we'll forget in a hurry, but there we go. We're going on to another week, another crazy week for sure. So let's get back to our bed. Listen, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you soon. Chris, thank you.